Look, when you create value, as we did with the drill bit last week and with the announcement this week, it's going to catch up to the stock. Typically, I think we'll see a seasonal upside in January, February.
The Financial Survival Network. Now more than ever. The Financial Survival Network.
Welcome all, I'm Kerry Lutz, your host of Financial Survival Network. We're here with Fury Gold Mines Chair Ivan Bebic, CEO Tim Clark, for a sponsor update on their just completed deal for their Homestake project. The simplified version, a stock cash deal worth $50 million with Dolly Varden Silver. I guess, Ivan, Tim, welcome. Tim, I know you've been working on this deal since before you ascended to the helm of Fury. Finally, your efforts have paid off.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a group effort to be sure, but when I joined the board, one of the things I noticed is that we were trying to do all things to all people, and we had it's exciting to have a lot of projects, but you want to basically focus in and really drive the ones you really find where the most value is. And the way it was set up with us with Homestake, we had a potential opportunity to sell it back then, and I was a big advocate for trying to do it. I think it was a way to focus the story, to simplify the story for investors, and also not to stretch us too far. We still are a company where we need our geologists focused on particular areas. There's a ton of work to do. And we also got to be sensitive to our cash position. And we have some big properties up in Committee Bay in Quebec. And, the corporate interest is there. And I think that's where our success will lie down the road. The interesting part about Homestake is, it was very hard to value. It was an asset that our geologists really liked. They were not that excited about giving it up. So when this deal came through to basically have $50 million in cash and $45 million in stock, I think it was a real win-win for us. And of course, Dolly, the ounces tripled and the grade went up significantly. We're going to have two of us on the board, so it's going to be a joint effort, myself and Mike Henderson, who's our chief geologist. And we're also going to have someone on the technical team as well. When we sat down with Sean Kunkun, it was a great match in culture between the two companies. We think very much alike, and I think they're as excited about creating value as we are. And so it was a big hurdle for us. We're really excited, and we're it gives us a chance to focus on the next thing.
And Ivan, you've long expressed your desire to sell the project off. It's kind of the best of all possible worlds. You get to sell the project, get cash, get shares of the company that has acquired it. What about the timing of this?
Timing comes perfect with a plan to, as Tim said here, to simplify the story. We've had some huge success recently, both at Committee Bay and Eau Claire, which really is driving the story for us. Personally, I didn't want to sell Homestake. I like it a lot from the exploration potential and being in the triangle. It's just too much on the plate, for the market conditions. And, as you heard me talk about this too many times on your shows for the last 2.5 years, putting a price on something you don't want to sell is the hardest thing to do. And I think, jointly as a group, we decided that the shares was the kind of exposure we wanted, going into this bull market, either personally or as a company, in another company to have almost 80 million shares. That's substantial, and it could work out being worth a tremendous amount for us. So from that, timing comes well because we just made 2 discoveries in the same week that we basically announced this deal. And I think that couldn't have happened better. And secondly, much like all of the commodity stocks that are at the end of a 10-year bear cycle, I think we're going to see a huge upturn, and being loaded like this and the optionality it creates is outstanding for us. The question comes up often of, what's next and what are your plans? And I think the answer comes out of the drill bit, which most certainly gives us the confidence that I'm sure we'll talk about out here at Committee Bay and Eau Claire.
And as far as the shares, I think you own a third now of Dolly Varden. There was some talk I heard on the chat boards that you might be dividending out these shares. Is that in the offing?
You know what? We have a 1-year restriction, and obviously Tim and Michael Henriksen are going on the board. No ambitions to dividend any shares out. We actually think they're served better as whole with all of our rights that we get with it within Dolly. So there's no talk of that at all across our management team. We do what's best for Fury, and Fury does what's best for shareholders. And that capital that we could create from that, if it ends up being monetized down the road, could really allow us to be really aggressive in raising the profile of Fury and benefiting our shareholders tremendously in the share price. So I think from a high level perspective, I mean, the optionality is going to be great, but right now, we plan to monetize that and do some really big things with this company.
And Tim, the now substantial part of your market cap is actually tangible in the shares of Dolly Varden. Obviously, it's just been a day since this was announced. Has to have some impact on the share value, doesn't it?
Well, it totally does. But if you look at where we are, the market's kind of in flux right now. It's still tax loss season. I think in portfolio managers and institutional investors, as well as individual and retail, are trying to figure out what they want to do next year. And they're looking at their whole portfolio right now, not just looking at the junior gold space. Look, when you create value, as we did with the drill bit last week and with the announcement this week, it's going to catch up to the stock. Typically, I think we'll see a seasonal upside in January, February. So that's how we're positioning ourselves. We've been on calls with institutional as well as brokers, trying to position ourselves so we can focus on a marketing schedule to get out there and tell our story. And once we do, I think that investors are going to find that this is a very good value play right now, in particular in front of what I think is going to be a bull market in the precious metals.
Agreed. Ivan, this is really a case of the sum of the whole being greater than the parts. You're right next to one another. It's really the perfect acquisition.
We had a lot of other interested parties, and because of the appeal and the high grade deposit that's there, but this should have been one project, long before Dolly or us got involved. As you heard on the webinar yesterday that we did with Dolly Varden, it's been about 100 years history of exploration here. So that being said, Kerry, often too much in this business, we see mines being built beside each other, but this is one big system. It now has the 15-kilometer trend. And if you talk about big systems and high grade, that's what I live for. But unfortunately, you can't kiss all the girls, as they say. And we're staying really, really keen on Quebec and Committee Bay. Committee Bay has been something that's really got me back into the helm of things at Orin post Caden. And I love that land position. It's massive, and the high grade, and watching what Agnico has done up there since we've been up there with Amaruq and whatnot. It's outstanding. And what's not being found anymore are high grade, large scale discoveries. These just aren't happening. There's very few. And I think that's one of the best addresses globally. But then you go to Quebec, and I mean, the environment to raise capital and the amount of ounces and the grade that you can get out of Quebec, there's been tremendous success there. So, this is my top gold pick right now in the entire business as a shareholder or as a chairman. And I say that, with aggressive nature, and we're in the middle of tax loss. No one's getting paid for any good results across the board. And it's kind of where I want to go pound my fist on the table, but I can't really do that on a Zoom call. But this is where you're not shy. I mean, we just did a massive deal. We have a huge amount of marketable securities that, as you've said and Tim's commented on, really backstop our current market cap. And at the same time, we get cash in the short term. We don't need to raise money. We can be very methodic. And we're not done yet with the big news for shareholders. There's 2 or 3 things pending in the next few weeks here that are quite substantial that could really double this impact and put us on quite a trajectory in the first quarter. So again, this is a time where you want to be bold. And when we can, I think you'll see some of us out there with you guys. But no, things are very exciting for us right now.
Yeah, and I noticed in the release you're getting another $2 million from Quebec for that project. Obviously, there's benefits to this transaction, Ivan, in the short run, in the long run. What do you see the major benefits as?
I see the biggest one is it takes the financial pressure off the company. It gives us a second avenue of substantial capital. And I'm not referring to the next 12 months, but if they have a successful year next year at Dolly and they start to make more discoveries, I think that Dolly's gone within 18 months or 24 months. And that kind of capital will take away, for us, if you do the math, it could take away substantial dilution in the future which changes our long-term valuation considerably. I mean, going up to Committee Bay or being in Quebec with potentially $100 to $200 million in the treasury from an outside, marketable security event, that's something unique to Fury. I don't know of any other junior that has that and has two, discoveries that are on their way, as I'd like to point towards Eau Claire and Committee Bay right now. So it's a very, very strong position. I think that we're overdue, as Tim said, for the price to come around. Fundamentals are way ahead of our share price. And our history has been to make that share price lead fundamentals, more or less. And we will get there. We will get there sooner than later.
All right. And Tim, now that this is out of the way, Homestake's done, in the bank, as they say, your focus is changing.
Well, our focus is still on the same pathway and to develop the drill bit and focus on our core assets, which is Committee Bay and Quebec. But look, we're trying to position ourselves that corporates really want to buy our assets at some point. We've been in conversations with some larger producers. We've got a interesting joint venture up in Eleanor South JV with Newmont and Azimut. I think that's something worthy to focus on for news for investors. But they got to remember, as you go into these bull markets here, we are an extremely desirable jurisdiction being in Canada, and we have some massive land packages. The large cap producers, there has not been a lot of exploration in the last 10 years. We're going to be on the short list for a lot of these guys going forward, and we're doing, I think, not only been projecting what our strategy was going to be this fall, but we're starting to execute. And when these companies start seeing us execute, that's when you can really create more value. And so those are kind of the trends that I would be looking for.
Yeah, that's a great point you mentioned, Tim, is that since 2012, exploration dollars have been in a downward trajectory. And at some point, that's got to change. Ivan, the latest results, Committee Bay. We've been talking about Committee Bay for several years now. You were hot on the trail, and now 13.9 grams over 10 meters. Again, really good news for the stock.
Yeah, you know what? That's one of the top 5 holes drilled at Committee Bay, and the only one better that comes to mind right now is the 39 meters of 12 grams drilled on the Hinge, just not too far from this hole. This hole, we hit a rock unit that we didn't expect to hit, and we hit a width that's 3 times the average width of the deposit. There's no shortage of high grade at Committee Bay, but the width here is substantial. And, there's speculation that it's a fold, another hinge, or a big rock unit that could go for 1.3 kilometers. And at that grade, the ounces would add up very quickly. I'd like to say that it's really good. It surprised all of our geologists. They don't know what it means yet to give it conviction and speculative size, which is the best thing you could possibly have at this point. Oh my God, we hit something great. We don't know how good it is yet, but it's really good. And that's the reaction we're having across the team. I've already seen the first blush of 10 holes that are going to follow this hole, but I like to think it's game on. And for me, the best part about where this hole was drilled, it's drilled in the heart of the belt where all the infrastructure is, where the other ounces are. It's far enough away from the deposit that it really opens up a huge new leaf or limb potential for this thing to grow bigger. But it's also close enough that economies of scale up north would be substantial. And if you think back to what makes Committee Bay so special, besides grade and endowment, it's future gold price. And, gold price has been lingering around 1,800 here, but I have to talk about it here. I think it goes well north of $2,000, $2,500 an ounce, which makes Committee Bay more viable than you can imagine. And again, it comes back to that same problem. Where do you go find 5 million ounces of 8 grams in the world? It's not there yet, but it's going to have a lot of shots at doing that in and several targets around that belt. So spectacular start up there. And I have to say this, there's a lot of history with me, but since Tim's taken the helm, Kerry, all this good stuff started happening. And then I like to look at luck as a measure of success. And Tim's brought a really big bag of luck, into this equation, and great things keep happening. So we're excited. It's just early and there's a lot more to drill there, but now we really have a story to tell up at Committee Bay.
And no matter how sophisticated we get in mining, in exploration, luck always plays a role. And better to have it, better to be lucky than smart, as they say, but to be smart and lucky, then you're doubly blessed. So Tim, the drills, I guess we regroup now for the winter, and then the drills start turning.
Yeah, we're working on some getting back some more information from our IP studies and till studies, and then we're basically positioning ourselves at year end to make a plan for the budget next year. But we'll be going back to Quebec for sure, and looking at Percival, which is a new target for us. We'd like to be drilling up at Eleanor South JV, and certainly getting back up to follow up on Committee Bay. So, we've got a lot ahead of us, and certainly good to be lucky. But the work really starts here. We've got our heads down, and we're plowing ahead, and I'm really excited. I think 2022 is going to be a great year for us. We've got some real line of sight of where we want to drill, and I think everybody's going to be watching us.
Yeah, well, I'm sure of that. Great news. Ivan, anything else you want to add?
Just, the big swings we take are based on our technical team having all of its capabilities. And Committee Bay, Dave Smithson, Michael Henriksen, Brian Atkinson, several others, Dave Rivard, the guys really pulled that off. It took time, and we've never been shy about big discoveries or big successes take time. I think the biggest strength in our groups is the caliber and capacity of our technical teams. And this really opens up a lot of opportunities, like you just saw with Homestake. And I think that bigger things are to come out of Committee Bay and out of Quebec. These are picked well by people from very smart places, and that's referring to our technical team. And I think it's going to make Tim's job and my job, very easy, and shareholders will see it later, maybe not today in the middle of tax loss, but eventually everyone's going to add all the pieces and say, look, they've sold this, they've done that, they've monetized this. We're doing some great things, and we're very thankful to our technical team and to our administrative team to power through these agreements that we're working on the M&A side. But strong team, great culture, great new leadership, and things have never felt better. Except for I wish I had a ton more liquidity so I could buy a lot more shares and get a lot bigger in the name, which will come in course. But at some point I will when appropriate, and just looking forward to it. It's finally fun again.
Just like the sum of the whole for the Dolly Varden acquisition is greater than the parts. I have a feeling that the sum of Fury is way greater than the parts. That the way they're being valued at the present time. Hey, want to go over to furygoldmines.com and sign up for notifications. Tickers, real simple. In the U.S., Canada, it's Fury, F-U-R-Y. Gentlemen, we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Kerry.
The Financial Survival Network.